a little bit about your Valley Tudo first fight, which I guess was while you were still under contract with WCW.
Yeah.
Did they have any problems with you doing a sport where there's very little rules, like Valley Tudo? There's no gloves, from what I.
No, they didn't, because they actually liked it, because it promoted them. They say, see, these guys can, go out there and be rough and tough and do what they need to do. So they like the fact that I can go into this environment where there's no rules and, compete with these guys. It's almost underground, this stuff. Matter of fact, it was a famous, this Valley Tudo, you can find it online. They made a documentary about it. It's called Choke with Hicks and Gracie. And in this documentary, it was a little controversial because they didn't know me. They didn't know my abilities then. They thought they were getting a pro wrestler. When I got there and they found out I was an Olympic wrestler and I can compete on this level, it was a whole different story. And my first fight against a world champ kickboxer, and I took him out in like 40 seconds and got around back, did a little choke, match over. Now these guys are thinking, oh man. So we brought him in. Basically, they probably brought me in to job me, to Hicks and Gracie, because I had a name.
Yeah.
But they didn't know I had the abilities of, these Olympic abilities. So in my next fight, I had this little submission artist, Japanese submission fighter. And they knew I was going to beat him up, and I did. I beat him up pretty bad. As a matter of fact, I beat him so bad he went blind in his eye later on. I feel really bad about that. And both his eyes were closed by the end of this match. Both eyes were closed. I beat him up pretty bad. But he won the match. You know how? He clamped onto my arm, and he was holding my arm, and I couldn't get him off my arm. So I picked him up to throw him out of the ring. We were fighting in a ring back then, not the octagon, but in Japan you fight in the ring. I went to throw him outside the ring. I picked him up and I went, ugh! And I did like that to throw him outside the ring, and they stopped the match. The referees. I'm looking at the referee like, what's going on? They said I submitted when I grunted. And you could clearly see he hadn't extended my arm was not extended. There was no lock. I wasn't tapping. I wasn't doing anything. But because I grunted, they said I submitted. They didn't not want me to fight Hicks and Gracie. And you can go on YouTube right now, look at the fight, Choke, and judge for yourself the fight. But the next match was Hicks and Gracie and this little Japanese fighter who could not finish the fight because he couldn't open his eyes, he couldn't see. And that's how this went. And there's a documentary on this. And by the way, I would have gone on to compete more in MMA. I wanted to be like Randy Couture and go in there and do some stuff. I retired. I felt so bad about this guy losing his eye, and I did it. I didn't feel good about that, so I retired from MMA. This is all, you can discover all of this in research and online.
Do you think you would have done well in the original UFC? Obviously, you had a WWE contract at that time, but the original when Tank Abbott and Shamrock and Severn were in there.
Yeah, I could have done well. I believe I could have. I had the abilities to be that kind of guy, and Randy Couture did it.
Yeah.
And we were on the same level. So yeah, I could have been good at that.
There's a fan on here that says he just wants to say he was a big fan of your no-nonsense wrestling style back in the Nitro days, and he's happy to see you. And another fan, you already talked in the full shoot about your Saturday night match with Ric Flair, but maybe you could tell us what your favorite match was of all your matches with Flair. I think you wrestled him more than once.
Yeah, I've had a lot of matches, and they're all my favorite matches, really. Anytime I wrestled Flair, I was happy. I was happy to be in the ring. We had some good battles at Center Stage, the pre-tape shows, and we've had some good battles in there.